Hi, my name's JB Keane. I'm the lead game designer on Far Cry 3. We wanted to take the kind of the grittiness that we found in Far Cry 2 and kind of really develop that from there. So we ended up with kind of really gritty tone, and then a lot of the kind of the tropical paradise sections from Far Cry 1 we then wanted to add together and find our own thing. I think we felt that one of the things that perhaps could be expanded upon from Far Cry 2 was the feeling that perhaps the story in Far Cry 2 is a little bit at arm's length, whereas this we wanted to make sure that this is a narrative journey that you're going through as a character, and that you're really feeling the development of Jason as he grows and experiences this stuff going through this pretty harrowing experience, and that's kind of our starting point. So Jason's kind of like a 20-something everyman who's he's had his successes in life, he's had his failures, and he's now off basically traveling the world and having a look around. He kind of arrives at this place and he's really cocksure, you know, he's really kind of like, okay, I can take on anything. Arrives at this island and realizes that perhaps this is maybe a wee bit too much for him. He's a wee bit out of his depth. It's kind of that same feeling that we want to evoke of, I don't know, if you've been traveling at all, that, you know, you kind of get to a place and then something really nasty happens and it really kind of takes your knees out from underneath you. Only this is kind of that on steroids, because, you know, yeah, you might be mugged or robbed or something like that, but hopefully you haven't run into kind of like, you know, mass slaughters and people with assault rifles and things like that.
I'm sorry. I don't like the way you are looking at me. Okay?
Vaas is definitely the kind of the super intense psycho guy, and that's the thing. So he's got definitely his own flavour. He's basically what happens if you leave a sociopath alone for 10 years with no rules around him. He's super driven. He's really got his own agenda. He's kind of like a bit of a shooting star. You know, he's going to burn really, really bright for a bit, and then he's going to fade off really quickly. Not to say that that's necessarily going to happen during the course of the storyline, but that's kind of in the overall scheme of the island itself. That's kind of what's happening with him. So he's really, really in your face. There's going to be other guys that are going to be much less so and have their own flavour. We want it to feel really alive. We want the world to really feel like there's a lot going on there, so that you're not spending too much time travelling from point to point with nothing happening, but that everywhere you go there's something that's going to kind of entice you off the beaten path. Yes, there's kind of like a story structure within the game, but that everywhere you're heading you're kind of seeing stuff off in the distance. There's kind of like, oh, what's that? Yeah, you go off and you have a look around, and it's going to be sort of different vignettes of gameplay. You know, sometimes it's going to be maybe more of an adventure feel to it, sometimes maybe more combat oriented, sometimes maybe more sort of like, you know, somebody's going to try and get you to go and do something for them. So we really want that breadth. It's not going to be a fully hostile world all the time. Everything that you saw in Far Cry 2 we're going to take on and then grow from there. So fire gameplay will definitely form a big part of the game. There'll be other things as well. We're kind of reintroducing a lot of the water-based gameplay that perhaps you saw more in Far Cry 1. You know, the idea of you being able to kind of skirt around. Beyond that, yes, there will be stuff. There's kind of a taste of it here, and then we will be moving on and developing that further as we go on later on. It's in the Far Cry world, in the Far Cry universe, and yes, we're on that same kind of gritty tone, but this is definitely its own thing. We really want to capture that kind of Far Cry heritage and then add our own thing to it on top of that. So the characters that you're going to meet in the world, I think, are going to have a really different hallmark feeling to the overall kind of feel of the island. And again, the gameplay, you know, the kind of the breadth of the gameplay that we're going to have, the breadth of choice that the player's going to have in the way that they engage with scenarios, I think will really set us apart. The E3 setup is a pretty good one. It's kind of saying, okay, so here's your objective, then here's all the toys and stuff like that, and then you decide how you kind of arrive there. So it's without trying to be sort of too didactic about kind of saying, you know, you must go here and do this. We really want it to be about how the player decides to interact, and also then change on the fly as well. We don't want it to be kind of once you've decided one thing then you're kind of locked into it, but more that, okay, so now I need to adapt my tactics, or now I want to back out, or whatever it might be, that you can make those kind of tactical choices on the fly. But hopefully we can kind of say, yeah, get to this point, but decide how you get to that point and how you take that route. And we're very fortunate with the Junior engine in that we kind of went through a lot of the things that we had to work out with regard to console previously on Far Cry 2, and that kind of technical knowledge and expertise is really serving us well now. I mean, you know, with the way that PCs develop and the way that PCs are developing at the moment, I mean, obviously they have much more grunt under the hood, which allows them to do things that the consoles perhaps are less well suited for. But equally, we really want to push and make sure that on whatever platform it's coming on, that we really push the boundaries as much as possible. And I still think there's definitely life in the current gen of consoles, because people are really understanding now how to get much more out of them.
Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity?